Just a quick plug before we get going. If you're not in the Discord server already, make sure you join up. The link is in the description below. Look to see you in there. And remember, the earlier members get a preferential advantage, so check it out. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 10-Minute Trades. And today we're going to be looking at a ticker that has been very hot in the news lately, and that is Nikola, NKLA. And when I say hot in the news, I don't mean for good reason. So let's take a look at this. This is one of those tickers that has not been trading for a while. You can see we haven't had data for quite some time. I mean, it's been pretty much been flat for the longest time, ever since about March of this year. Started to pick up a little bit of steam though back in April. Really went parabolic in May. You see we had an all-time high all the way up to almost $100, just shy of $94 back on June 9th. And due to some recent events and recent controversies and recent news stories, we have sold off pretty heavily. I mean, just recently on September 8th, we had intraday highs in the mid 50s. And within just a few weeks, we are now almost half, actually more than half of that has been lost in share value. So let's get right into it. You know, the first thing I like to do is turn on some Fibonacci retracements. So what I did was I basically drew a line starting kind of before all the madness happened around mid to late April. I drew it to all-time highs on June 9th. And so the one area to look at right now, and I will draw your attention to, is this line right here, which represents the 78.6% Fibonacci level. And the reason why I think that is important, just keep this number in mind. This is about the 28.87-ish share price, as you can see on the right side here. So just keep that in mind while I hide this for a second. But I'm going to show you this first horizontal line that I drew, and that is going to be right about here, which is going to be at about $55. I think that's an area of resistance. We are quite some far away from it at this point, but you can see we're at the top of this wick here on September 8th, top of the candles here, bottom of some candles here in early July. So I think that's an area of resistance. If we keep working here, I think there's an even higher area of resistance closer to all-time highs, but again, we have a long ways to go before we get there, somewhere around $72, because again, you can see a few candles here that topped out in that range. Another area of resistance that's a little bit closer to where we're trading are, and that's going to be around $46, $47. You can see back on August 14th, we bounced up to that area and then bounced below it. We tried to break above it on September 8th and 9th, couldn't do it. Again, bounced back down. And it looks like here on July 8th, it was also an area of support. We bounced off it. So let's keep working. There's another area that's resistance, but much closer to where we're trading now, and that's around $41, $42. And that's because, again, you see multiple candles here that basically topped out at this price level. And then all the way dating back to July 21st, you can see, again, we try to break above it. We bounced down off it. There's a little bit of a support back on July 7th. And that's also where we kind of gapped up on June 8th before it really took off to the moon that day. Now, if we keep working, I think the closest area of resistance to where we're trading right now is about $37. You can see there's some top of this wick here, this wick here. Then we also topped out back in early August as well. So I think that's an area of resistance. This is going to be probably an area of support, but not our closest area of support, because this is going to be at roughly about $20, $21. And that's right where before we really took off, you can see there's a few candles here in wicks back on May 12th, 15th that bounced right off it before we really went parabolic. So the reason I brought your attention to this Fibonacci level at 78.6 is because there's a horizontal trend line that I think is right now acting as resistance, but was once support. You can see back here on July 24th and July 30th, we bounced off it twice before we rallied up a little bit higher. Then also back here was a little bit of resistance back in end of May before we broke above it. And as we can see, the past 3 trading days on September 21, 22, and 23, I'm going to zoom in here. We basically tried to break above it, but as we can see on September 21 and 22, we closed right below it. And today we had a very big red day. Nikola dropped, I believe, around 10, 20% today, which was absolutely crazy. But we closed well below that trend line. And I think right now we are testing this trend line as support right around $20. So I think the trading range for Nikola, at least in the short term, is about $20 to about $28. It looks like it's going to trade in that range. We'll have to wait and see. Now, if I zoom out, I was trying to identify, what is the current trend here? Or what is the overall pattern? Let me hide these Fibonacci retracements so it's less cluttered here. And I think it's not a singular line down. I think it's forming basically a wedge pattern, because if I draw a trend line here to the downside from where we basically took off to the moon on June 8th and draw it along the bottom of these candles here, and we're going to try and avoid this candle here, because if I do that, then we're going to intersect some of these candles here. So it won't really make a difference depending on how acutely I draw this angle, because when I draw the trend line to the top, you'll see the wedge pattern forming. So again, I'm drawing it from all-time highs back on June 9th, trying to incorporate the tops of these recent candles here in early September. As we can see, it's forming a wedge pattern here, but it's narrowing down. So what that tells me is that it's going to trade in a tighter range as we keep going bearish. Actually, I think we're going to keep selling off a little bit, but it's going to trade tighter and tighter until at some point when we get kind of to this peak here, if I even extend these lines out, you can see that at some point they're going to basically intersect. But I think at some point what's going to happen is the share price is going to break out of this pattern, but it doesn't necessarily have to break out to the upside. It could break out to the downside. So we'll have to wait and see. But judging by the current news articles out on Nikola right now, things are not looking really good. I mean, they basically don't have a physical product, but they're valuing their company for millions, if not billions of dollars. They have this now partnership with GM, which should be good news, but there's been some controversy about Nikola's CEO and some of the tactics they're using. So I think that's what's accounting for the recent sell-off the past, actually today. I'm actually shocked that Nikola did not sell off the past 2 days, because that's really when some of the worst news articles broke. But it looks like the news finally caught up with them today, because Nikola was down. Let's just take a look. Nikola was down 25% today. I mean, down $7.36, which was crazy. So, I hope my viewers are not bag holding shares of Nikola right now, because I would be really scared. Personally, I have never traded Nikola. I don't own any shares of it. And right now, even if the premiums are looking very juicy, I would be very scared to trade Nikola, because I think, if bad news continues to roll out, if there's lawsuits or investigations, you might end up bag holding these shares. If you get assigned on, let's say, a cash secured put, you may bag hold these shares for a long time, because who knows when, if ever, Nikola will ever get back to, $50, $60, $70, $80, $100. As we can see, if I zoom out, it's been trading for about $10 for quite some time. I mean, ever since about June of 2018, the stock price hasn't moved much, but until a few months ago, it really took off to the moon for whatever reason. I think there's a lot of hype around EV companies right now, and these companies are producing electric cars and trucks, and there's just a lot of hoopla and hype about them, which is kind of, making investors buy shares and pump up the stock price, which may not actually be a fair valuation of the company. That's just my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see how things shake out. But yeah, personally, I have no intention of trading shares or options on Nikola, because I would be scared of bag holding these until essentially the end of time, really, because who knows how long Nikola can remain solvent. Like I said, they don't have a physical product. They're basically a company that just sells very expensive artwork, in my opinion. But let me know in the YouTube comments below if you traded Nikola. Hopefully you made profit off them, and hopefully you got out. But if you're bag holding shares, let me know. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Let me know what ticker you want me to analyze next.